Hi there, it's Judith and Desjardins on an early morning in Santa Monica. And today I want to make a video on the topic of fear. And this is really, I want to call out fear for what it is. Basically, we have an instinct to survive and protect ourselves. And in that situation where there is actual danger that is approaching us, we have a natural, organic, unconscious reaction to fear where we go into generally a fight, flight, or immobilization response, which causes the pupils to dilate, blood to go through constricted vessels to the hands and feet so we can fight or flee. We have a rapid heart rate because we're feeling the danger. There is a boost of adrenaline and stress cortisol, which activates us with superhuman strength so we can flee or fight. All of that is good, and it's supposed to be time limited so that we can take an action, fight, flee, and then remove ourselves from the danger, and then our body is supposed to go down to a resting heart rate. The immobilization response, or the freeze reaction, is a harmful one because all of those strong physiological things are going on, but the person doesn't fight, doesn't run, and so they're caught like a deer in headlights, and that it's really an immature fundamental response of animals sometimes to play dead. They'll curl over and play dead and hope that the dangerous intrusion disappears and then they can get up and run away. But for humans, being immobilized with all of those physiological changes going on in the central nervous system is very traumatizing. And in fact, with PTSD, people will get haunted by the fact that they froze during the situation, and the memory of that stays in the body and terrorizes them in hyperarousal, dreams, recurrent dreams about being helpless in the face of danger. So all of that, except being immobilized, is healthy and normal. But what I want to talk about today is when fear is irrational and it totally takes over a person and shuts them down. This can be this can happen to people when they are facing a fear, but they haven't made a decision about how they will face it, and they start anticipating in the future what that fearful situation will do to them. And at that point, the body goes into this guy rides by on a bike and sings at the top of his lungs every day. He never got sick during COVID, and I think that's a really good thing. But back on topic here, fear, when it gets caught in a vicious loop that goes around and around, and you start anticipating in the future all these dreadful things happening, that's when it gets immobilizing and corrosive to the whole system. It affects mind, body, spirit, emotions, and it distorts your ability to be in present time, because when you're in that high anxiety, your eyes tend to roll back in. You're not really seeing what's around you, but you're just thinking these dreadful thoughts, and it goes from high arousal in the brain down into the body and causes, again, this hyper arousal state, which can develop into a panic attack, which is very, very uncomfortable. When people have a panic attack, they feel like they're having a heart attack. They have sweats, they have heart pounding, they have shortness of breath, chills, tingling sensations, hands and feet, dissociating from the self. All of that is very destructive and shuts down the person. So what I want to talk about today is the fact that in order to get through that, you need to first acknowledge that you're going in a downward spiral from fear to anxiety to panic attack, which can lead to depression, and sometimes people taking their lives because they think this will never be over. There is a saying in 12-step recovery that fear, F-E-A-R, is often false evidence appearing real. Many people are stunned by a change or a fearful change that might happen after, like cancer patients, when they're going for testing and then they have to get retested because there's something suspicious. That can lead one down that spiral where before you even get test results, you're expecting the worst to happen. When people have traumatic losses, any number of things, natural catastrophes, we think that we cannot recover. We think that things will always be negative. And that takes us out of present time, which could be used for finding solutions, and in this helpless, victim, immobilized state. So my appeal today is to check if you're manufacturing false evidence appearing real. When there's a frightening situation, see what the facts are and see if they're real or imagined. If they're real, you can find ways to deal with them. If they're imagined, you need to call them out as imagined things that are appearing real but are not really real. I had a brief experience with that yesterday, and it was pretty immobilizing until I figured out what was going on. So the bottom line is that God has given us the ability to deal with life circumstances, to be response able, to find solutions, and we should not be stuck in these negative downward spirals. I want to take you briefly into my garden to show you how God has programmed all living things to know how to find solutions, how to grow and prosper. So let's look at some of the wonder in my garden right now. We have all these beautiful roses that don't have to wonder, how will I get from a leaf to an unopened bud to a slightly opened bud to these beautiful, full, developed roses. They are programmed by nature to know how to do this. Human beings are programmed by God to know how to find solutions, how to become healthy and happy. Let's look at all of these amazing tomato plants. My husband bought me a series of 4 in small pots from Costco. I planted them in the garden when they were much smaller, and they didn't have to wonder, how am I going to survive in this new environment? How am I going to grow? It was programmed into them. They know how to make these amazing bunches of tomatoes, all sizes and shapes of tomatoes. The smell, the aroma of these tomatoes is wonderful. This eggplant the leaves had been in a different location, and they had all gotten nipped by slugs and stuff like that. I planted them in the cover of these tomatoes, and now I have an eggplant growing there, which I've never grown before. We have more roses over here, and roses, more tomatoes. All of these plants were programmed to know how to grow and become who they were intended. We human beings have the same programming from our Creator, how to be beautiful, how to solve problems. This plant in particular looked like it was dead during the winter, and by the spring it's growing again, programmed by God. We know how to survive. Our bodies know how to regenerate when we have illnesses and diseases and changes. Look at this beautiful wild bamboo. Oh my God, look at that spear that's going all the way up to the top. I absolutely love my bamboo, and the crowning jewel in my Japanese garden is my red purple maple, which is bare all winter long, and then when it hits the springtime, it just becomes absolutely magnificent. And so I send these words of encouragement to all people around the world. Do not become immobilized with fear. Find solutions to the challenges that present themselves. We are response able. We have body, mind, emotion, and spirit, which can deal with challenges and help us to be resilient. So I send you love and peace and encourage you to have a beautiful spring day from my garden. Thank you.